So anyway, thanks everybody for coming. A real honor today to have Shafak Pavi speaking. She actually lives in Istanbul, but the legislature is in Ankara, so I got confused a little bit. But this is a picture actually of Istanbul. So again, I want to recognize Molly for all the development efforts to make this lectureship possible, and also Vicki, who always gets things organized, and Gail's going to take care of the graphics and the AVs, and also the fellows helped a little bit putting this talk together. So people always ask me this, why in the world is there a McFarland lectureship? Redneck from Kentucky, can't hardly speak English, too many head hits from football, and little trouble occasionally with potty mouth. This is where I did most of my studying. It's Churchill Downs, if you don't recognize it. But the real reason is a very grateful patient of mine, a guy named Mr. Farkas, who has sold his business and retired to Florida. But at the time he was 65 years old and had arthritis in both of his shoulders. Had failed non-operative treatment, as you might expect from these radiographs. He had a left total shoulder arthroplasty in 2007 and a right in 2009. And fortunately, he did very well and was a happy camper, a satisfied customer, which in our business is pain relief and really pretty decent function. He didn't, oddly enough, want the lectureship named after himself and insisted it be named after me. So now the institution is cursed with the McFarland lectureship. Also, I want to thank all the other people who actually contributed to it in the run-up to getting it fully funded. These are all patients of mine along the way, some names you might recognize, like Dr. Friedman, who also is now retired to Florida. But the other question is why have Shafak Pavi speak. Last year I was the president of the Association of Bone and Joint Surgeons. It's a small group of orthopedic surgeons, about 200 strong, who really actually have more of a general orthopedics meeting, but all subspecialties are organized, and they own and run, or started actually, clinical orthopedics and radiology research somewhere around 1947 or so, and have run it ever since, and they're responsible for making sure that the editorial board is staffed and all that kind of stuff. So every 4 years, though, they have an international meeting, and it was my good fortune that the year I finished my presidency was in Istanbul, so I got to pick the presidential speaker. And so Ms. Pavi was our guest speaker, and she was just to say tremendously so awesome that I thought it'd be wonderful to have her come and speak to us, because her message is very compelling. She's a double amputee, and she'll tell you her story, having lost her left arm and left leg above the knee in a train accident, and has gone on to be a member of the Turkish Parliament. She's been on the United Nations Committee for Human Rights, and is known throughout, particularly Europe and our world, for the rights of what are called vulnerable populations, people with disabilities, women, etc., and has spoken around the world, has given speeches around the world about these topics. But more importantly, she's worked for legislation and for rights of people with disabilities. Last 2 years ago, she received the International Women of Courage Award by Ms. Clinton and Michelle Obama. This is not something that gets much PR in the United States, but she's written 3 books. She has a TED lecture that will hopefully be on the internet soon. So that's a distinguishing mark as well. She has her own Wikipedia page, as does her mother, actually. And so you might ask how she came about doing all these things. And I don't... where's your mom? She's up in the back. She's sitting way back in the back. But it ends up that, oddly enough, we have 2 celebrities in the audience today. Her mother is a very well-known a journalist in Europe, and particularly in Turkey. And strangely enough, too, she also won the International Women of Courage Award about 20 years ago. When they awarded Shafak the award, I don't think they even realized, she told me last night, actually, that they didn't know that they were related. So I think it's probably the only mother-daughter crowd that's ever won the award together. Or at different times. She also was censored by the Turkish government a couple times, where she had to flee the country to save her own life, which, we take freedom of the press here awfully for granted sometimes. But anyway, so it's a real honor not only to have Shafak, but her mom here as well, and she's going to give us a little talk. Oddly enough, too, outside of misspelling her name, it's really supposed to be Turkey, orthopedics and lessons learned. She's not going to talk about Turkish orthopedics. She's going to talk about her life and the things that she's learned along the way.